Hello friends, welcome to the today's session on understanding international groupings. We will use BRICS 2016 summit and the latest BRICS-BIMSTEC outreach as an example. This is one of the most important and potential topic for UPSC, and the questions in this topic can be asked generally in two ways. That is, in prelims, we generally have a fact-based questions, while in mains, we will have analysis-based questions. However, we cannot do a proper analysis without understanding the facts. So, when studying about any international organization or any kind of grouping, just ensure that you have looked into all the facts, then you start writing analysis so that your analysis is more structured and is in an oriented fashion. So, to understand what kind of facts are important, where to look at, when summit has happened, we will start looking into newspapers which are giving us lots and lots of facts generally. So, being an aspirant, all the facts are not important for us. We just have to pick up those things which can be asked in a question. We must be aware and we must be careful in picking the facts such that we have comprehensively covered the topic. For this, we need to develop a framework first and analyze all the issues, all the international relations and international groupings based issues based on a proper framework so that we can cover things comprehensively. So after this a long introduction, let us start looking into what the framework is, how we are going to proceed further in this session. What we are going to use in the entire session is, for the organization, we will look into who the members are, that is, who the member countries are. Then we'll look into geographical locations of those member countries. Then we will look into the history of groupings. After that, we will look at the previous summits. While looking at the previous summits, we need not focus on all the points, all the things that have been covered in the summits, nor we need not look into every summit of every grouping. So you need to pick up only those summits which are remarkable and which are often discussed in news. After that, after looking into previous summits, then you have to look into the latest summit, what has happened, what things have been discussed, and what are the proceedings. After that, I would suggest you to look into mission or vision of the group, because when we want to analyze a particular group and write a proper answer for mains, we need to structure our answer and we should not put up points in a haphazard way. It is better if we can address the analysis in a structured approach by taking the vision of the group and comparing its achievements against its own vision to see how far it has proceeded well, to look where it is now and in which direction. So this makes us stand in the same direction and stick to the point of the question, and it will allow us not to put any points in a haphazard manner. So just look into the mission or vision of the group here. If you are not looking for mains, or if you are not making any analysis of it, generally the mission and vision of the group is not that important for objective based questions. Then after you look into the mission and vision of the group, look at the achievements, where have they gone till, then look into what are the pitfalls. After this, you can come to a good conclusion how to make a grouping effective. Now, once we've understood the components of our framework, let us start applying the same framework across our two examples, that is BRICS 2016 Summit and BRICS-BIMSTEC Outreach, to understand the power of our own framework and to effectively utilize it here and to understand how to use it further. So let's get started with BRICS first. So starting with the BRICS, those who are new to the preparation of UPSC, I would suggest you to have an overview of the countries and their locations first before looking into any grouping. You will understand why I am asking you to look at that once we start looking at some previous year questions. We will be doing it in the nearest future. So first look at the important locations where the countries are. BRICS is comprised of 5 countries: Brazil, South Africa, India, China and Russia. So these are the 5 major parts of 5 different continents. And these BRICS countries comprise of around 42% of the world population. Imagine a small group of 5 countries having 50% of world population and 20% of GDP. This itself is important and is enough to understand the importance of BRICS. Now, the points like this, that is 42% of population, 20% of GDP, 13% of trade, all these things are not important with respect to every grouping. However, just imagine 2 different points in an answer. Point number 1 says, BRICS grouping has a lot of population. If it comes together, it can effectively combat climate change. Point number 2. BRICS countries comprise 42% of world's population. If they can come together and work effectively, they can combat climate change. Which point do you think will add more weightage to your answer? Obviously the second one, right? So just pick up those facts which you think are important, and while picking up those facts, make sure that you can use these facts across answers in various topics in various domains. Only then you can remember the facts, or else there is no point in remembering percentages of GDPs of all the groupings and all the populations and trade and all, etc. So once we have looked into the members of BRICS, we'll look into the members of BIMSTEC. First, I'm extremely sorry for using a map which doesn't portray India completely. I cannot help it because even BIMSTEC website itself doesn't produce its own maps. So we are compelled to use this. Now, look into BIMSTEC. It is Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral, Technical and Economic Cooperation. For the member countries of BIMSTEC, now whenever you are looking at a regional organization or a sub-regional organization like this, who have members in contiguity, there are more chances of question being asked in the order based on which the member countries are located. So when you are studying about member countries like this, make sure you follow a particular order instead of remembering them in a different way. So BIMSTEC countries will start from here: Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand. Then come to these 2 landlocked countries, that is Nepal and Bhutan. So BIMSTEC, B for Bangladesh, I for India, M for Myanmar, S for Sri Lanka, P for Thailand, then Nepal and Bhutan. So we are clear that BIMSTEC has countries which open into Bay of Bengal and 2 other countries which are landlocked. So statements like this are very important, because if imagine a question, which of the following statements are true about BIMSTEC? Option number 1, all the BIMSTEC countries are littorals of Bay of Bengal. Option number 2, it's a regional organization. Options are same as ever: A1 only, B2 only, C1 and 2, D none of the above. What is the answer? Answer is none of the above. Why? All the countries of BIMSTEC do not open into Bay of Bengal. There are 2 countries which are landlocked. Apart from that, BIMSTEC is not a regional organization. It is a sub-regional organization covering South Asia and Southeast Asia. So both the points are wrong. Answer becomes none of the above. So words like this becomes very important while tackling with prelims examination. Now, after looking into BIMSTEC countries, we move to the next point of our framework. As I mentioned earlier, we will look into 1 or 2 previous questions after the end of each pillar to understand how effective our pillar has been, how we have to improve our pillar. Now, let us look into this question. India is a member of which of the following countries? This is an actual UPSC question. So, first option says Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. Option 2, ASEAN. Option 3, East Asia Summit. Now, you don't know whether India is a part of Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. You are confused because it says Asia and Pacific, India is a part of Asia. There are fair enough chances that India being a part of APEC. one thing is sure, we are not a part of ASEAN, you know that, right? So 2 cannot be in the answer choices. So strike away those options having 2 in the answer. 3 only, India is a member of one of them. So answer here is 3 only. Just like this I asked, it is important for us to understand the member countries of those groupings in which India is either present or India aspires to be present. Once you have seen this previous year question, let's start looking at the second pillar of our framework, that is maps. I request you to pause the video here, open your atlas, and let us start continuing with the session. So please take 2 minutes of break, search for your atlas, open it, we'll continue with the session. Welcome back to the session. Now, why we need to look into maps? It is a common phenomenon that whenever something controversial happens in the international arena, UPSC will never go into controversies. It will rather try to pick up questions based on the map-based locations in and around that regions. So it is important for us to look into maps when we are discussing about such a summit. So let us start with first BRICS on this exercise. So please take out South America political map. The required country for us here is Brazil. If you observe Brazil, we can see that Brazil shares border with most of the countries of South America, right? So it's important for us to understand which are those countries with which Brazil does not share border with. Chile, Argentina, and Ecuador. So these are the only 3 countries with which Brazil does not share border with in South America. Whenever something like this is observed in maps, it's important for us to look at it once or twice so that we can remember it. Next, if you observe Brazil properly, you can see 2 important latitudes passing through Brazil. One is equator, 2 is Tropic of Capricorn. So Brazil is also important for us even in this point of view. As a part of our general studies preparation of maps, it's important for us to look at all those countries through which equator, Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer are passing by, either from left to right or from right to left. UPSC has already asked questions based on this multiple times, and it is likely that the question may be asked again also. So these 2 are the important points in Brazil with respect to political map. Now, please come to South Africa or Africa political map. African map as a whole is important for us both in political and physical way. However, now we will try to do this exercise on a political map. I will teach you how to do the same kind of exercise on physical map using BIMSTEC countries, so that as a part of your own exercise, you can apply the same on physical maps of South America and South Africa. Please don't worry, we'll covering up the entire maps in a separate session on international relations through maps 10 to 15 days before prelims examination, so that we can focus on the most important locations. So in South Africa, Cape of Good Hope is important. Try to locate it and map. This is often confused with Cape Horn and South America. So it's your exercise to locate where Cape Horn is also present. Then South Africa is one such country which has got 3 capitals. So please try to locate those 3 capitals: Cape Town, Pretoria, and Bloemfontein. So try to remember these in an order. Only if South Africa is again and again in the news with respect, else just have an idea that South Africa is one such country with 3 different capitals. That's more than enough. Next, just look at Durban, where it is present. Try to mark it, because Durban is again in the news. So once we are done with South America and South Africa, let's start moving into Asia or Eurasian continent. Look at Russia. It's a vast country with its capital located close to Europe. So it's easy for us to access Russia in this fashion rather than going across China, Korea, Japan, Strait of Malacca and all these regions. So it's important for us to understand this route of access towards Russia than the other route. If you see now, Indo-Russian relations are repeatedly in news. Sanctions on Iran are being lifted up. India is working on a port in Iran, that is Chabahar port. One more thing, Saudi Arabia is into crisis. So it is likely that the oil prices might start increasing internationally again. It's important for us to diversify baskets. Russia is a country with second most abundant reserves of oil and natural gas, of which few of the reserves are present in the exclusive economic zone of Caspian Sea, which belongs to Russia. In all these contexts, Caspian Sea becomes very, very important for us, because it is the Caspian Sea in which resources are present. It is the Caspian Sea which offers route for us. So just look at the countries which are in and around Caspian Sea, that is countries that open borders with Caspian Sea. So this is how you have to link up various issues happening in the international arena to come to a conclusion which sea is important for our prelims examination. So once we are done with the Caspian Sea, to the Pacific Sea. If you see, Russia, China and India have a kind of geographical continuity. So just mark those important cities which are there in this end, that is from Russia to China. So we have certain important cities like Okhotsk, Vladivostok, Beijing, Shanghai, then you have Hong Kong. Just look at those 5 cities. Okhotsk will be somewhere over here, then Vladivostok, Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong. So there is likely chances that these 5 cities may be given and they might ask you to arrange these 5 cities in an order either from south to north or from north to south. So this is a slight orientation towards how to look at maps when talking about an international organization. Please try to exercise same kind of things in the other ways also. I have mentioned earlier, we will come up with a detailed webinar covering all these aspects 10 to 15 days before prelims. Let us start moving into the physical maps exercise. We will do the physical maps exercise using BIMSTEC as an example. So please open Asia region physical map. Well, we've already discussed that there is a lot of geographical continuity across the countries in these regions. We know that Himalayas are present across from here to here and then they have an extension here like this. So there are a lot of rivers originating. So let us start looking at the important rivers from one direction. When you are looking at rivers, cities, ports, etc., try to start in a direction and end in the other way so that you can remember them in order. If you look at it in your atlas, you will have Indus, then Ganga, Brahmaputra, Irrawaddy, Salween, Mekong. Please remember them in the same order. So after this, look at which rivers are joining Bay of Bengal, which rivers are not joining Bay of Bengal. Then, please look for a location named Arakan Yoma in your atlas. This is the extension of Himalayan plateau. This has already been asked in UPSC examination, which of the following are the extensions of Himalayas. So this is very important. So you have a lot of hills in this location. So please look for those hills. Patkaibum Hills, Naga Hills, Mizo Hills, all these things. Once a question was asked on Garo Khasi Jantia Hills, so there are likely chances that these vertical ranges might be asked. So guys, this is not an exclusive session on maps. This is a session on BRICS and BIMSTEC. So we will pause the exercise on maps here and we will look into the actual international relations concept of this. Before that, we will look into a previous UPSC question as we have discussed earlier. So this is the question. What is the correct sequence of the following cities occurring in Southeast Asia? So we imagine you know just 2 out of these things. For example, let me see, I know Jakarta. I know Jakarta is in Indonesia. I have an overview of where ASEAN map is present, I have an overview of ASEAN countries and locations. I know Jakarta belongs to Indonesia and Indonesia is at the bottom. This option gets eliminated. This option gets eliminated. We also know Singapore. We know that it is exactly above Indonesia. So, Jakarta first, then Singapore. So just with this, I can have an answer for this question, irrespective of knowing Bangkok and Hanoi. Right. So we'll move into the next part of our framework. History of the groupings. So we'll understand this pillar with the help of BRICS again first. BRICS has its history dating back to end of 1990s when RIC, Russia, India, China were being discussed as a trilateral. So this was around 1990s, end of late 1990s. After this, in 2001, Jim O'Neill, an economist, has come up with a word, building better economic brick. So he coined this term expecting that the four countries, that is Brazil, Russia, India and China, would dominate the world economy and trade. So anything which is coined for the first time, happening for the first time, becomes important in asking history-based questions. The same thing can be seen on a recent 2016 question paper wherein a question was asked about Indo-African summits history, historical background. In 2006, informal discussions were held between the countries of Russia, India and China at the margins of United Nations General Assembly debates. So continuous interactions have led to the formation of BRICS with its first summit in Russia in 2009. So 2009 becomes important for us in this slide. Jim O'Neill is important. Building better economic brick is important. 2001 is also important. So these three are the factual questions possible based on history of groupings. One more remarkable and most important feature of BRIC is there, that BRIC has expanded into BRICS. That happened very recently, that is in 2011. So once you have understood the history of BRICS, we'll move into BIMSTEC. So initially in 1997, BIMSTEC was just BISTEC. That is Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Economic Cooperation. So this group was formed somewhere in July. Grouping was formed somewhere in July. After successful interaction between the member countries for a few months, Myanmar got added. Thus, BISTEC became BIMSTEC, Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Thailand. Economic cooperation was same as the earlier expansion. So, after 2004, BIMSTEC got even more expanded. Thus, Nepal and Bhutan were added. However, the acronym, the shorter form remained the same. The expansion changed. That is Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical Economic Cooperation. Once we've understood BIMSTEC, let's move into the next part of our framework. So the next part of our framework is looking into the important previous summits. So now it's very difficult for us to remember these many number of facts always for our examination. So there is an easy way for us to remember these facts. If you see your webinar pane, you have something called as infographics.pdf. Just download it. You have all these facts arranged in wonderful images. You can use these images, looking at them once, twice, thrice and 4 times, just that the image gets imprinted on your brain and you can remember the facts easily. Now let's start looking into the important summit. So first summit, as we've already discussed, it's in Russia. The core objective of BRICS has been laid out. Emphasis was on economic and financial issues. They want to emphasize on the role of G20 in reforming the international institutions and reforming the international governance. So this was the second emphasis. There was a paper, there was a document being published, the prospects of dialogue between BRICS, how well they could proceed. So second summit happened in Brazil. Location Brasilia. Locations are important. I'll tell you why. I'll show you a model question to help you understand which locations are important. So second summit has nothing more important there themselves, so that intra-BRICS cooperation can improve. So this was the first and second summits. Let's move into next ones. Third summit was held in China. This summit is very important because this happened in 2011 and we've already studied earlier. South Africa was admitted into BRIC, thus BRIC became BRICS in 2011. Fourth summit, New Delhi, 2012. This summit is the most important summit in the entire history of BRICS because something most important happened that is going to impact the global economy, global system, global monetary system in the coming future. India has come up with a wonderful proposal of forming a bank. There are a lot of new emerging economies. There is short of funding. A lot of money is required for infrastructure improvement. So India came up with a proposal of putting up a bank. Apart from that, they wanted to emphasize on giving credit in local currencies. What does that mean? Imagine India is going to get international credit in rupees. What is it used for us? It will have a lot of impact on our forex reserves. We need not pay back the debt again in dollars. So this is also important. So summit, Durban, South Africa. Bank was proposed. They have studied the feasibility of putting up a bank. On what conditions we have to put up a bank, how it has to operate, and all those other studies. There were also negotiations were contingency, reserve, management. At the 6th summit in Brazil, Fortaleza Declaration, this declaration has established new development bank. So the 6th summit and 4th summit are important. Let's move on to the next one. 7th summit, 2015, location UFA. Ratified the formation of NDP. The new strategy for economic partnership has been devised. This is a brief discussion on previous 7 summits. Option statement number 1, new development bank has been set up by APEC. Obviously no. Headquarters of the new development bank is in Shanghai. Yes. Option becomes 2 only. The next previous year question. Fortaleza Declaration, which is recently in the news, is regarding, there were 4 options. Now we know the answer. Answer is BRICS. So I told you earlier, just make sure you mark the locations of various places when I was discussing with you about Brazil. This was a question given in 2010, wherein an outline map was given. Points were marked as 1, 2, 3, and they are asked to match with this. In 2010, venue of Commonwealth Conference, Israel-Syria peace talks, place of action were Russian troops. Same kind of questions may come based on things happening in 2015-16. Now we'll move into the next part. We'll now move into the latest summit, that is at Goa. So the Goa summit came up with the declaration known as Goa Action Plan. You may call it as Goa Declaration also. What is the theme of BRICS Summit 2016? The answer is building responsive, inclusive, collective solutions. Declaration is the voice of the grouping. So we need to understand what has happened in the grouping, where the grouping is heading to, what is the stand of the grouping on various issues based on a declaration. Our declaration has more than 7,000 words in which only few lines are important for us. Green bonds are generally issued to carry out developmental activities. What is so important about green bonds? Green bonds are generally tax exempted. The declaration has few paragraphs on terrorism and global security challenges. This is generally used by the newspapers for critical analysis. However, the declaration mentions about 2005 World Summit document. 2005 United Nations Human Rights Council is established after the declaration of this World Summit document. The declaration also talks about Syrian conflict. BRICS reaffirms their commitment, their interest to encourage the Syrian conflict to be solved in accordance with some Geneva Communique. So this is a peaceful solution being offered by a group of parties. Apart from that, the summit welcomes and discusses and appreciates about a lot of intra-BRICS initiatives, sustainable development initiatives in that agenda, BRICS-BIMSTEC outreach, reforming of IMF, BRICS is very categorical regarding reforming of IMF. It is very categorical on reforming the IMF based on the quotas. So apart from that, it talks about various dispute resolution mechanisms, stability of Afghanistan. This is again a separate issue which is important. We will be discussing in the near future. African Peace Fund and other funding issues. So it also talks about tax evasion, information communication technology, science and technology initiative, G20, BRICS roadmap, peaceful use of outer space, so on and so forth. So I've told you before, understanding the achievements of BRICS, it is important for us to look into what are the objectives of BRICS. Number one, intra-BRICS cooperation, and number two, coordination on multilateral forum. So let us start analyzing the achievements of BRICS in both these perspectives. We will start with intra-BRICS cooperation. Within BRICS, the cooperation has been going good. It is solidifying since the beginning. If you see the developments in latest summits, various summits we have seen, initially they have discussed about economic cooperation, then that included South Africa, the bank came up, some reserve arrangement came up, negotiations are happening to form an alternative credit rating agency. This credit rating agency is important because if something like a 2008 crisis happens, in 2008 financial crisis, most of the investor rating agencies have followed one size fits for all approach, giving bad ratings for most of the emerging economies. They have not considered the local aspects, local considerations of various regions into account while giving the credit ratings of various countries. So it's important for the BRICS countries to evolve and develop their own credit rating agency, which is customized according to the needs and happenings of the local countries, which is more transparent in nature and which can give more information to the investors. Then we have seen these two being formed under Fertilizer Declaration. There have been funding for infrastructure developmental projects. That is important both for prelims and mains. New Development Bank funds for non-BRICS countries also. Though it's a bank being established by BRICS countries, it also funds non-BRICS countries. New Development Bank generally funds sustainable developmental projects. According to AIIB Bank estimates, around $800 million of infrastructure is required for the BRICS countries to keep moving ahead. The existing IMF and World Bank cannot give that much of funds every year for all the nations so that development goes on. So New Development Bank is kind of value addition to the existing debt mechanisms so that the emerging economies can start getting more and more funds to develop infrastructural projects. New Development Bank focuses mostly on sustainable development. It has been formed as a part of Fertilizer Declaration and it funds infrastructure. Contingency Reserve Arrangement. What is the purpose of Contingency Reserve Arrangement? It is a fund earmarked to meet short-term liquidity of financial crisis. It was also a part of Fertilizer Declaration 2014. Share in this reserve arrangement is important. China has a higher share of around $41 million. India, Russia and Brazil have equal shares of 18. South Africa has a share of around 5. So this is various shares of contingency reserve arrangement. So apart from contingency reserve arrangement and New Development Bank, these 5 countries have proceeded far ahead in intra-BRICS cooperation. Overall, it is going good. We have seen good strategies on economic partnership. We have seen various initiatives being formed. Business councils are formed. They are planning to integrate MSME sector of all the countries to form a global alliance of MSMEs. MSMEs is very important when we are talking about unemployment, when we are talking about poverty alleviation, when we are talking about rural empowerment, especially women empowerment. MSMEs play a major role in all these aspects, and BRICS countries want to integrate their MSME sector so as to improve into a global alliance. They're sharing expertise regarding base erosion and profit shifting. BEPS. What is BEPS? Suppose there is a country A. A company has started. I have started a company in country A. Taxation in this country is high. So I have a subsidiary in some country B. I transfer all my profits to country B in the form of dividends, payments, etc., royalty, fee, and all those things. Now, I'll make sure my company in country B is in a tax haven. Some tax haven is a place wherein it's easy to get exemptions from taxes. So the profits of the company in country A are being shifted to the country B. Resources are being used in A, profits are shifting to B, taxes are being paid in A. This is the current situation of most of the emerging economies and the developing countries. India is also one of the victims in this. So BRICS countries are sharing their expertise to avoid this base erosion and profit shifting. They are also working on anti-corruption group and many other initiatives. Something important here before coming to such a conclusion. Pathetic stage of BRICS internal cooperation. If you start observing trade from 1997, trade has increased from 6% to 14% by 2007. Thereafter, we can start finding a declining trend. Most of this portion of the trade has been driven by 2007 Olympics of China, because for which it has been importing a lot of raw material. So post 2007, you can see a complete decline in the trade amongst the BRICS countries. Imagine, some grouping is formed to improve economic strength and trade, which is not happening at all. We know development happens because of investments. You can see most of India's FDI goes to goes to UK and USA. China's FDI goes to Africa, especially non-South African countries. Brazil's FDI goes to Latin America. So this is the stage of trade. This is the stage of investment. When we are talking about something negative, make sure you substantiate your argument with exact facts and figures. BRICS has been consistent in coordinating with G20. It is also coordinating with United Nations. It's coordinating with most of the international platforms. This is evident even from the recent declaration. This is what I was mentioning earlier. BRICS states we reaffirm our commitment based on United Nations Charter. So please don't put up any such points which are controversial to this. It is having a consensus on reforming global governance. It is also showing good consensus on important security challenges like situations in Afghanistan, Israel-Palestine conflict, etc. So this is how we've understood how effective the BRICS is on the lines of its two stated visions and goals. Before coming to discussion on India's influence on current BRICS declaration, we'll discuss something about BRICS and BIMSTEC outreach. Hardly anything improvement has happened in BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC had its secretariat very recently established in 2014. Permanent Secretariat of BIMSTEC is in Dhaka. Apart from that, nothing much has happened. Though there have been a lot of negotiations and discussions in forming a free trade area amongst the members of BIMSTEC countries, it is still in the stages of discussion. A lot needs to be done before moving ahead. So that is the history of BIMSTEC. Now, let us look into BRICS and BIMSTEC outreach. This is not something new. Please don't start discussing something like BIMSTEC veins as SAT vexes. Don't put up these things. Don't look at BIMSTEC BRICS outreach in this point of view. Similar outreaches have happened earlier when Russia has hosted the summit and Brazil has hosted the summit. What is the need of BRICS BIMSTEC outreach? What is its importance? BIMSTEC countries have a geographical continuity. Geographically, they are contiguous. There is a lack of connectivity issue amongst them. Having infrastructure along this route becomes expensive. This is where BRICS and BIMSTEC outreach pitches in. So NDB could start funding to fill infrastructure gaps of BIMSTEC countries so that the trade amongst the two groupings could improve. There have been a lot of discussions in newspapers regarding India's influence on current Goa declaration and in BRICS. So before throwing light on this topic, it is natural that the host country has got some advantages. It has got some addition, some plus points to put up its own agenda, its own things in the declaration. It's something like the declaration is already being in process and the consensus would have been achieved before the summit itself. Diplomats will be working on it. So host country will have some added advantage to put up its own view on it. There are some controversies, some issues in the latest declaration. For example, the declaration does not mention anywhere about Jaish-e-Mohammed or groupings like Lashkar. There have been UN designated terrorist organizations. Now, in this context, if you want to put some points like this, please don't use those names which are not approved by the global body. In the wake of recent attacks, these organizations could have been placed in the declaration. However, let us look into why it did not happen. Emphasizing on these kind of issues needs India to be strong enough economically. India should have much power, much strength to put up an assertive voice. The point in this regard is much debatable. I'll leave it to the views of the listeners. Once we've understood what is BRICS, we have seen the history of the summits, we have seen the latest happenings. Let us look into how effective the BRICS has been, how it has to move ahead. The world economy is facing a major downturn. This has been emphasized in the very first chapter of 2016 economic survey. Similar has been reflected in the majority of the BRICS countries. China has its own problems. It is having a shift in economy. The Chinese economy is seeing a transition from production oriented to consumption oriented. Russia is facing pressure because of plummeting oil prices. Brazil is facing political instability, economic instability. South Africa is facing economic instability. Internally, BRICS countries are facing a lot of problems. So BRICS should start emphasizing and reaching consensus about various issues. BRICS should start working about developing these organizations. This could be possible if it comes to a consensus on credit rating agencies and the proposed BRICS FTA. BRICS Bank would come into picture here. The new development bank has already given certain soft loans. So the new development bank could take more share in improving the economies of these countries. Apart from that, we've already discussed about giving credit in local currencies in earlier summits of BRICS. This could be expanded to increase trade in local currencies. This will help us to pluralize global currencies instead of depending only on dollar majorly. So pluralizing these global currencies could help us to reduce any kind of risk. Apart from this, BRICS countries should start coming forward to improve their own trade relations, to improve their investment relations. Building up the stronger economies of BRICS will give it a better political voice. It will help us to create a multipolar world, and it will guide the BRICS countries to move ahead and remove the misinterpretations of World War II, which has been emphasized in the latest Goa Action Plan. We'll end the discussion here. Before closing the session, we'll try to have an insight into some more questions. First question: which of the following are true regarding Goa Action Plan that is recently seen in the news? First option says, it is a joint document released during the BRICS-BIMSTEC outreach of 2016. Second option, the document is silent on the security challenges faced by India. This is a joint document, of course true, released during the BRICS-BIMSTEC outreach 2016. No. BIMSTEC BRICS outreach has happened after the BRICS summit. I've told you earlier that a declaration is generally released after the summit has been completed. So BRICS summit is done, Goa Action Plan is released, BRICS-BIMSTEC outreach has happened. So this option is wrong. Next, the document is silent on security challenges faced by India. This is also wrong. The document clearly specifies and mentions India as one of the victims of terror. So none of the above. Which of the following are true about contingency reserve arrangement? Option 1. Contingency reserve arrangement facilitates currency swaps. Option 2. It is operationalized by NDB. All the BRICS countries have equal votes in contingency reserve arrangement. Let us look at the options. Contingency reserve arrangement, NDB, something looks similar. Might be true. It's wrong. Contingency reserve arrangement is operationalized by a network of central banks of all the member countries. So this is wrong. Next. All the BRICS countries have equal votes in contingency reserve arrangement. What is this? It is just a small fund, right? So there is no point in having any votes with respect to that fund. So this option is also wrong. This goes, this goes, this goes. The answer is one only. Contingency reserve arrangement. Yes, it does facilitate for currency swap. Next, first BRICS trade fair was held in 2016. BRICS Bank was proposed in Fertilizer Declaration. Which of the above statements are false? BRICS Bank was proposed in Fertilizer Declaration? No. BRICS Bank was proposed in 2012 in New Delhi. False. 2 has to be the answer. Or this might be the answer. Now, first option. First BRICS trade fair was held in 2016. Yes. So it is not false. It cannot be in answer choices. Answer is B. Let's move ahead. Mock question number 4. Which of the following are true regarding Goa Action Plan? It calls for a resolution of Israel-Palestine conflict on the lines of UN Charter. Yes, it is formed by United Nations Action Group on Syria, which is on the lines of United Nations Charter. Second option. It lauds the role of white helmets in its humanitarian role in Syria. No. Goa Action Plan talks about the issues of Syria. However, it does not explicitly talks about white helmets. White helmets is a humanitarian NGO organization in Syria. Now, answer becomes option A. So, which of the following countries do not open into Caspian Sea? I leave this question as a part of your own exercise. Please open the maps, find out which country does not open into Caspian Sea. Thank you all for attending the webinar. Thank you.